what are the elements and how can we use the elements as a means of understanding and transforming our habits of mind, our habits of emotion, our habits of action? And also, how can we recognize the near enemies that actively working with the elements can produce? Because these near enemies will inhibit our further progress on the spiritual path. So this will be our topic in today's episode of the Maverick Mystic Arts podcast. And we'll dive into the fire element. So attributes of the fire element. The main one is will. That ability to just go and continue, right? That perseverance or tenacity that is of the will, that fiery thing. So the will, this can be a very, very useful tool, and we might apply this fire element to a technique or an exercise such as one-pointed concentration. You focus on one thing to the exclusion of all else. This is what having an object of meditation is. It might be a mandala. It might be the feeling of your breath, like Anapana meditation under your nose. It might be the movement, a broader type of object to focus on, a movement of the diaphragm, a movement of the breath as it functions through all the systems. It might be a candle. It might be wall gazing, where you look at the wall, nothing else. Whatever your object of meditation is, could be any type of symbol. Whatever it is, you focus on that purely, completely. Right? Now, as we start to focus more and more and more and more, the extraneous wanderings and habitual patterns of the mind, the objects that the mind habitually moves towards and clings to, and brings up, into our conscious experience, these start to fade away. Why? Because what we touch with the mind grows. The mind has energy, right? Energy that is imbued upon its contact with any type of stimulus and budding thought forms and the sustaining of thought forms, etc. So, and then much, much more. So, through choosing to focus on something with absolute purity to the best of our abilities, absolute diligence, unyielding purity of attention, we can start to siphon off the energy that we have habitually given to all of these habits through the mind being pulled in, right? So this is an active way of beginning to gain some type of control over the patterns and habits of our mind. And we find through one-pointed concentration that there are plenty of habits of emotional movement and physical movement as well. So a simple instruction like sit still and don't move can be very, very, very difficult. The problem with that instruction, sit still, don't move your mind, don't move your body, don't move the emotions, meaning that anytime you start letting the mind go down a rabbit hole that of course is in conjunction with a whole landscape of feelings, that you simply return the mind to the point of concentration. And that point is a reference point of stillness that allows you to see the actioning that's occurring in the mind all the time, in the emotions all the time. And eventually there's a flip that occurs, right? Where you recognize that the non-doing of things is what you thought of as the doing of things becomes the non-doing of things, and what you thought of as the non-doing of things becomes the doing of things. But no need to think about that right now. So, you have your focus, you have your object of meditation, and now you are choosing something to feed. Now, if you're having trouble picking, let's say, like the breath, right? The Anapana type meditation is an easy one, or holding like a simple mandala or something in your mind, then you can use something an object of meditation, maybe that has some positive emotion, that has some positive construct. So we're not simply sucking that energy that was being siphoned off to these habitual negative habits of mind into something neutral. We're actually siphoning it into something that is positive, that will aid in our positive growth and in transforming the physiology that has been consumed by these old habits, usually negative, and transform the physiology into something that is in alignment with the more positive object of concentration. Right? So you're training the mind. One of the nice things about mandalas, or if you have particular objects with deep spiritual significance, is that you are connecting with all of the qualities, mentally, astrally, physically, of the spiritual object as well. So as you focus on it, you're purifying the concentration, and you're also feeding energy into everything that that object symbolizes. So that is why it can be of some value to consider what object you might use as your object of concentration, because you are creating a new mental habit that every time your mind is wandering, you'll develop a habit of returning it to this thing. Okay, so that is why it might be risky to have your new object of concentration be something like, you know, in the manifesting world, like a car that you want, or a person that you want, or, you know, an experience that you want, you know, whatever that is, because you are building a new habit. We haven't evolved doing this. We are simply, it's like doing a different exercise at the gym. You were putting a bunch of energy, let's say all you did was, you know, a bench press or push-ups. You were putting a bunch of energy into everything that helps with this. And if you start doing only squats instead of that, all the energy and the bodily formation that went into creating, you know, your chest and your arms in a way that could do this, a lot of that energy will now need to be consumed to work and adapt the legs of doing the squats. And so the body changes shapes, right? Now you're just changing where the energy is being allocated, where the resources are being allocated. So we want to be wary of not assuming that we're doing some deep spiritual work at this point. We are doing foundational reallocation of energy into something that is going to help us with getting out of that fight or flight response, that tension, that constriction, that will allow us to start to recognize closer and closer and closer to the source because of the concentration. It'll help us recognize closer to the source when we start to go down those habitual rabbit holes of mind and habitual rabbit holes of emotion, and of course the action that follows out of that. Okay, so this would be an example of the fire element. Now, we mentioned the near enemy at the beginning of this video. All the elements have their near enemy. The fire element being to the purity of focus, concentration, in this example that we're working with. This can also be very deleterious to our future growth spiritually. So we need to be very, very aware of how we are using a tool and not to confuse that tool for spiritual development. If we get attached to purity of focus, this is a very, very difficult thing to move beyond, right? Because as we, in the beginning, there's a certain density of will and mind and identity that is engaging in the process of focusing, right? And that density itself is of that layer and level of focus. And so if we want to move beyond that, we have to actually surrender all of us that was engaging in that level of consolidated will and focus. This can be very difficult. So of course, the next one might be the air element. And actually, you know what? I think we'll make this a few different videos because it's a lot to consume in one. Okay, so let's close this one out. If you're interested in training, please check out the website. There's a number of courses coming up, workshops online. There's, of course, the coursework. You can find the Initiation into Hermetics course on the website, and hope to see you there. Hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you on the next one. All right, thanks a lot. Bye.